Okay, so this is number 6. And now that we're getting into 6 through 10, just beware that the equations may get more difficult. Okay, so this is what we got. And so remember, you're still trying to get rid of the radical, so you're going to square both sides. So now what we have going on here this time is we're going to have 2 of these. So you're going to have to FOIL that right there. And then this side is just 39 minus 5w because the radical lifts. So now if you remember FOIL, you first, so w and w is w squared. Outside, w times 3, negative w. Inside, negative w times 3, or negative 3 times w, negative 3w. And then last, negative 3 times negative 3, positive 9. So now you've got all that. So now you want to get everything together. So we're going to get our 39 over here with our 9 because we want our constants together. And then you want your 5w over here with one of your w's because you're just going to combine all 3 of those. So you've got a w squared, and we've got a negative 3, which is going to be negative 6, and then plus 5 is just going to be negative w out of all 3 of those. Then you got a 9 minus 39, it's going to be negative 30. Okay, so again, we're going to do what we did a minute ago. In that last video, we're going to make the 2 binomials. Your variables are w's. All right, what 2 numbers can multiply to equal negative 30, but add to equal negative 1? So 6 and 5. The question is, which one, do they both need to be negative? Both need to be positive, one negative, one positive, and so forth. So if they were both negative, negative 6 and negative 5 would not be negative 30. So one of them needs to be negative. Which one? Well, when you add them, they need to equal a negative 1. So you need your bigger number to be the negative, because negative 6 plus 5 is the negative 1. So then we do what we did on the last one. We set them equal to 0, and then we solve. So we've got w equals 6, w equals negative 5. Now, again, you want to check on these because you may have extraneous solutions. So you go back to your original. We're going to check the 6 first. So 6 minus 3, 39 minus 5 times 6. And then we're going to check the negative 5 also. So I'm going to go ahead and write it down too. Okay, so this one first. 6 minus 3 is 3. 39, this is going to be 30. So 39 minus 30 is 9. And then square root of 9 is 3. So that one worked. Now go to this one. So negative 5 times negative 3 is negative 8. 39, this is going to be 25, and then 39 plus 25 is 64. But the square root of 64 is 8, not negative 8. Okay? So that one does not work. So the negative 5 is not a solution. That's what we call an extraneous solution. So only the 6. That's why I have to check these, the ones that have 2 solutions. So w equals 6 is the one that works. All right, number 7. We've got 1 plus the square root of x equals the square root of x plus 11. All right, this one's a little bit different. You've got this expression here, and there's really nothing you can do. You're going to go ahead and just square that. Because you can move it over here, you'll move them around, but you're still going to end up with the same problem. So you're just going to square the whole thing. So this is going to be like we did on the last one where we have to FOIL. And then that one will just be x plus 11 because the radical just lifts up. All right, first, 1 times 1 is 1. Outside, 1 times radical x is just radical x. Inside, 1 times radical x, radical x. Last, radical x times radical x is x squared, the square root of x squared, which means it's just x. Because remember, that it would look like this. I'm going to go to the side and show you. It would look like that. The square root of x squared is x. So that's why we get x here. And then you still have your x plus 11. So now we can move everything over. We can move our x over here with that x. We can move our 11 over here with that 1. So those cancel. Well, look, the x's cancel. 1 minus 11 is negative 10. There's 2 of these radical x's. So it's going to be 2 radical x minus 10 equals 0. Now what we can do, so there's some things you can do to this, because you could move your 10 over here. This one you kind of have to think about, you know, what you could do next with it. Move your 10 back over here by itself, because we have this coefficient that we now can divide by. Then we get this radical by itself. Now we can do that. We can square again, and it gets rid of that radical. And then that's 25. And you're done with that one. So that one you had to think about. You had to do all that once. We did all the radical, we squared both sides once, but then you got to a point where you could rearrange the problem and then square it again and get an answer. Okay, so now what we're going to do is get into some that are different roots. And these are the same way. It's just now, instead of being a square root and you square the problem, this one's a third root, so we cube it. So whatever the root is, that's what your exponent's going to be. So if it's a third root, it's to the third power, and it does the same thing it's been doing. It lifts the radical. But now, instead of being 5 squared, it's 5 to the third power. So 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. And you're done with that one. Number 9, you've got the third root of 9w plus 10 equals 4. Again, it's the third root. So, I'll put the fourth root for some reason. So whatever the root is, that's what the exponent is. So it lifts that radical. So you got 9w plus 10. 4 to the third. 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. And then you subtract 10. Subtract 10, which is 54. And then divide by 9. W equals 6. And that's that one. All right, one more problem on this lesson. Number 10. Number 10 is a third root problem, but they just wrote it with the fraction. So if you remember, we talked about in one of the other lessons that if your exponent is a fraction, that's the same thing as it having a root, okay? So if it's 1/3, that's the same as the third root. So you can leave it like that, or if you like seeing it with the root, with the radical sign, that's fine. Those two things mean the same thing. The only other thing you're going to do to this is you're going to put this 3, you're going to move that 3 over. But these two things mean the same thing. Either way, you can leave it like that and square and cube it, or you can change it to the radical and cube it. It doesn't matter. It's going to do the same thing. So I cube it, and what it does is it lifts everything, leaves just the 2v minus 3. And then negative 3 to the third would be negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3, negative 27. And then now we solve it. So we're going to add 3, add 3. So that's going to be negative 24, divide by 2, divide by 2. And that will be negative 12. And that is hopefully just about everything you'll see on the lesson 6-7, which is solving radical equations.